Greetings and welcome to Pop's Collection, where we dissect and reflect on a movie or TV show from my Pop's Collection. I'm Ron Tweedy, joining me is Pops, and today we're going to be talking about X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Howdy, everyone. Glad you're with us today or in the evening or whenever you're with us. If you're with us in the morning, hope you have your coffee. We have ours. When I saw this movie, again, we decided to do this. I was really happy to see it again. That was your first time seeing it, right?
Yeah, this past the day before. Yeah, yesterday.
Right. So that was your virgin viewing.
Yeah. I from the reviews that came out when it was out in the theater, made me think, not really worth it. And I think at the time, because it came out in the 2009, right? Yeah. So that
yes, April 9th,
so
actually.
by that point, Iron Man had come out, and it's like, why even bother with something that's not going to be done by an MCU movie? Was not interested.
Right. Now, after seeing it, how did you feel about it?
Well, see, I don't think I can be objective about it because I've seen X-Men First Class and Days of Future Past and Apocalypse after it. So it's like, I think that's kind of tainted my view of how I could, I couldn't really just, I think that's kind of influenced what my expectations would be for an X-Men movie. So.
Okay. And, but just to be clear, the only Wolverine movie that you saw was with me, the Logan movie, correct?
That's right. I have not seen the Wolverine, which we'll watch next week, but.
Yes. Okay. Well, yes, like I said, it actually came out April 9th in 2009 in Sydney. Imagine that,
Right.
being as how the producer was Hugh Jackman.
Right.
So I can understand that. It did come out Free Comic Book Day, May 1st, 2009, or the week of Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah.
So true to form to a lot of Marvel stuff. That's when it premiered.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that I really enjoyed the movie, even though it was, this movie actually came to be because of the studios. The writers, as they were doing X2, they wanted to do a Wolverine movie, but we discussed in X2 how that, what was it, Lady Deathstrike
Mm-hmm.
was the daughter of the Silver Samurai.
Right.
And they had wanted to do that story, which we'll get into in the Wolverine. But the studios said, well, yeah, we'll let you do that, but first you have to do an origin story.
Right.
So that's where this came about.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's kind of interesting, but Jackman did the majority of his stunts by himself. He had very few stunt doubles doing this. He was actually, it was reported that he made the stunt doubles tired. They were like, okay, let's take a break. Oh no, let's go. Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
So he was in really good shape for this, and for this whole trilogy, he was very much.
Yeah. See, that's, I think, another part where it kind of takes me out of the reality of the film. Like, you can't lose yourself in the story for two main reasons. The first one, as you just said, is that Hugh Jackman, to his credit, he does do a great performance. I think that is the high point of the film, is his performance in Liev Schreiber's Sabretooth as well. But the problem with that is that this is supposed to be taking place before the events of the first X-Men movie, which takes place in the year 2000, and he is more jacked, more buff than he is in that film. So it's like,
That's true. That is true. But you got to remember too that we saw from the beginning of the movie, it started in 1845.
yes, and
And not only, go ahead.
That's okay. I'm just glad you brought that up, because the source material for this is that they did do like an origin of Wolverine, with the idea that he was born in the mid 19th century, back in 2001. So they had this comic, it's a 6-issue limited run series, Wolverine: The Origin, and it was written by Paul Jenkins and drawn by Andy Kubert. And let me see. And for those of you who are just listening, you're going to miss out on this. So check us out on Facebook or YouTube to see what I'm going to share. I'm just going to share a screenshot of one of the comics. So you can see here, this is from the last page of issue 2, but it's very indicative of the opening scenes of the of this film. You have young James here with his bone claws, as he's accidentally murdered some of his family. So very similar to that. So
right. Although in the movie, he basically murders what he finds out as he's killing him, his real father.
Right.
He thinks it's the groundskeeper, whose last name, if I'm not mistaken, is Logan.
Yes.
And that's how he kind of finally got his name, Logan.
Right, which is not consistent with the comic, but he does take the name Logan because after the murder, he gets kind of banished, and they have to, him and the girl that was kind of helping him out in the house, because he's from a rich family. She's one of the servant girls. She takes him away, and they find refuge in I think Alberta. And
in the real origin.
In
the comic book origin.
Yeah, they have to work in a quarry to survive. So
right, different origin. They did take a lot of left turns in this particular origin story, and actually with Sabretooth's origin, I don't really know if there's a really clear comic book origin for Sabretooth.
Yeah.
And also in this case with Weapon 11, which we know as Deadpool, that actually the origin for that is so totally out there.
Yep.
Which of course Ryan Reynolds, when he did the Deadpool movies, attempted to be more true to the original origin story.
Right. So that, I didn't go too much into detail with him, because like you said, that's another story for another day. It's another movie.
Exactly.
But yeah, anyway, but I did think the way that they portrayed James and Victor going through the several different wars, that was pretty interesting. The montage between that, I thought that was
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And what we did see towards the end of that montage is that Victor, or Sabretooth, as they said, he was getting ready to, looks like he was getting ready to rape a Vietnamese woman.
Right.
And his captain was trying to stop him.
Yep.
And he in turn decided to kill the captain, and Logan comes in after the fact, and he's trying to protect his brother.
Right, because when they were kids, Victor looked out for James. So
right, exactly. At least that's the story that we get through all of this.
Yeah.
And they both have the power of not dying.
Yes, or healing factor. Yeah.
Yeah, healing. Yeah, I know. Probably that is the closest thing to him having a brother, his half brother.
Right.
But wasn't sure why Victor took the name Creed. I don't know where that fits in if he was Logan's son.
Yeah, I don't know. In the origin comic, they just call him Dog throughout the comic. So it's but I'm not
Right.
sure. But it's not like super clear if that's actually Sabretooth or not. But anyway,
In the comic.
yeah. So
Right. So we don't know if that's an origin. I actually broke this movie down into almost 9 different things, actually 10 different things that I wanted to talk about.
all right,
But
that sounds like a good. Let's go through that rubric.
that was the number one.
Okay.
The part from 1845 to the next change, which was the A Team, or Team X, as we'll call it.
Yes.
Which had Agent Zero, Wade Wilson,
Yeah.
which we know as Ryan Reynolds. We also had John Wraith, which was our buddy from Lord of the Rings.
No, Wraith is the.
I'm sorry. Yes, he's the teleporter.
Right? Yeah,
Will.i.am. Yes.
Yeah, discount.
Black Eyed Peas.
Discount Nightcrawler.
Yes, and that's exactly what I thought at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Dukes, who in the comics is the Blob.
Yes, that's right.
But not the Blob when he was in Team X.
Right, which is interesting.
Yeah, I thought how they went about that. But Chris Bradley was our guy from Lord of the Rings. And he was called a technopath.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yep.
And they did some jobs together, and they all worked for William Stryker.
Right.
Who I believe was a colonel at the time, right?
Yeah, we talked about Stryker, the character Stryker, at length in the X2 episode, because he plays a key role there, and he is very different from his comic counterpart, at least the first appearance of his comic counterpart, him being more of a preacher. He did have a military background, but he was not a military man. He was a preacher, and he was preaching against mutants, saying that they were an abomination. So that was Stryker as we were introduced to him in the comics, and now, like you said,
X2 was a different Stryker.
It was the same military man, taking mutants, and instead of wanting to destroy them, wanting to take them and steal their powers and use it on behalf of presumably the United States government.
Right, which we're not sure, but we do learn that he still has in this version of him that he does hate mutants.
Yes.
And all because, again, his son, which we got that story in X2.
Yep.
So very similar story. And we also find that the other members of the teams, I wanted to do a quick homage.
Okay.
Because only this thought that I think you should know the other comic book movies. Danny Houston, who played Stryker, was also the Nazi general Ludendorff in Wonder Woman.
I noticed that. Yeah, Tracy was like, he looks familiar. And I was like, oh, yeah, Ludendorff.
Yes. And then Daniel Henney, Agent Zero.
Yep.
I'm sure that you will not remember him, but he played Tadashi, Hero's brother in Big Hero 6.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
All right. Now, Ryan Reynolds.
Yes.
I think that he's giving our girl, Rosario, a run for her money.
Oh, okay. About the number of roles he's been in.
Right. Weapon 11. Deadpool.
Yep.
He was in Blade Trinity, the 3rd episode.
Was he really?
Yes. Was he a played vampire? The voice. No, he was a vampire hunter.
Ah.
Okay. He was on a team with Jessica Biel, and a couple others. But he wielded a sword in there too.
Okay.
All right. He was also the Green Lantern. We know that.
Was he the Hal Jordan Green Lantern?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
He was also in one called R.I.P.D., which was the Rest in Peace department. It's comic.
Right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And he also played the voice of He played Detective Pikachu.
Yes, he
in
did.
the Pikachu movie.
That's right.
So he's given Rosario a run for her money, I think, on that.
Yeah. Although technically
Now,
Weapon X and Deadpool are kind of the same character.
right. Well,
XI,
weapon
yeah.
in this Weapon 11 or whatever.
I don't know.
Liev Schreiber.
Mm.
He played Wilson Fisk in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Did he really?
Yes, he played the voice of Wilson Fisk.
Interesting.
Yes. And of course, our Lord of the Rings buddy, Dominic Monaghan.
Right.
I have to, his other comic book, Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, he was in that. So not much of a part, but he still was in it. So I have to.
Oh, yeah. I guess he was.
Yes.
Blinking, you miss him. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think his other role, I think, is really big as in Charlie as in Lost.
That's true. Oh, yes. Well, I think he got this part was same director, right? For Lost and for this?
No, Lost is J.J. Abrams. So.
Okay. So then.
Which is why he was in the Star Wars movies.
Maybe so. But it wasn't their first go around when it comes to comic book stories for all those actors.
Sure.
So we got Team X, and Stryker is looking for something, or he found something he wants more of.
Yep.
And we kind of learn later that it's animanium, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that the mission that they're on is to try to find animantium. You're right. Yeah.
And he's getting pretty violent, and of course, Victor's okay with all the violence, and actually most of them are, but Logan not so much. So
yeah, and I do find it that it's I guess coincidental that you have a rare sought after metal in Africa as well as in the MCU as well. So
yes,
go figure.
Yeah, well, the stories kind of coincide.
And they both came from a meteor, which is another thing.
Right, and it's not even though one's not MCU.
Yeah.
So that was my second part. The third part, hang on a second. I had a little something stuck in my throat. The third part that I wanted to talk about, actually, I'm going to say 4 because the homage was part in there.
Sure.
Were the 6 years later when he was a lumberjack.
Yeah, so that's the thing that gets me about this film, and that's the one that takes me out completely. I had to look it up, and I was like, okay, the actual setting of this movie is 1979.
Right.
I mean,
so okay, where did that come from?
Well, for me, there's nothing about this film that tells me this is a late 70s movie. It doesn't look like a late 70s movie. The cars, I mean, you get a little bit of that. I mean, but you could also take the cake that, Logan's just driving around in a beater, It's not like.
Well, yeah, and the motorcycle was also from that era.
Yeah. But then again, it was owned by an old guy. So an old guy in his prime could have bought it then. And, so to me, there was no, I mean, all the technology that they had, like all the computers and stuff like that, did not look like they were from the 70s, like when they were doing the Weapon X testing. So to me, it was like, that's a big fail for me.
Also, well, those could kind of be almost from any era, because there's not much changing in those things over the years. As you can remember, Mr. Morgenstern had one that looked pretty similar to what they had.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that part didn't take me out. It was just, it's just,
right now, but see them being in Canada and it kind of almost fit into the original origin story.
But it's like, so for me, watching Days of the Future Past before, you can definitely tell they were in the 70s, everything.
Correct.
Everything about it
Right.
was very true to that era.
The era.
This
Yes.
not so much. Not at all.
Well, there wasn't a whole lot in this film that was true to any era.
Right. Which is I don't like that. You know, maybe I'll feel different 20 years from now or watching MCU stuff. I don't think we will, but I don't know. To me, yeah, I think that was a big fail on its part.
Epic fail.
Yeah.
And that whole part, and we got into the manipulation of Stryker
Mm-hmm.
with him.
Yeah.
Telling him a story with Agent Zero that Victor's gone rogue. His girlfriend tells him a story about the Wolverine, about the moon, and
Yep.
these little things. And he, after telling him that Victor went rogue, all of a sudden we see the death of his girlfriend, and all he can think about is vengeance.
Yes.
Which he was trying to get away from all that violence and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And he was having nightmares about them all the time. Which brought me to, when I thought about that, I thought about our old pastor at Calvary Chapel.
Okay.
When he had talked about a story about breaking the commandments, and how that if somebody had threatened or did harm to his wife or children, he couldn't really say what he would do. And I thought that, okay, well, Logan is trying to be on the soft side, but they pushed his buttons to the point that he was full out wanting to do harm to his brother because of what happened to his girlfriend. Yeah. So manipulated to the point of not being a peaceful guy anymore.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. Like I thought she truly was dead, and that wasn't really a thing. So the filmmakers did a good job about that. But yeah, that brings us to the Weapon X part of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that actually was a storyline told in the early 90s, the Weapon X in the Marvel Presents by Barry Windsor Smith is the one who did that. And so it was like Marvel Presents was kind of like this, they had multiple stories going on in the same book. And so I do have a screenshot of that just kind of shows you the very, very similar. You can see him in the tank and the adamantium being infused in him there and whatnot. And so that was
I thought that part was really good.
Yeah, it was fine. Yeah, not the worst part of the film, but just something that was pretty cool.
Right. And of course, Stryker wanted him to get the adamantium, and then he wanted to kill him.
Yeah, which I didn't
just use the DNA for it.
Okay, that part,
his super soldier.
Yeah, that part I didn't get, and that's
now you get it.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense, right?
Yeah, and it definitely that pays off much later. So that's pretty cool, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I did want to mention the best part of Team X is that Ryan Reynolds never shut up, or Wade Wilson never shut up.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the funniest part was when they were in the elevator and they were playing tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree.
Yeah.
So that was a good part. We got into the Weapon X.
Yep.
And he does escape. And that's when we get the family farm, the old lady and the old man.
Right.
And he's hanging out naked.
Yeah.
And which I thought was pretty funny. And he tells him to put the blanket on because he doesn't want his wife to have a heart attack.
Yep.
Yep. And we kind of get this little story, which I thought that they did really well, because in that little short time, you got a feeling for the old man and the old woman.
Yeah.
and they kind of developed this little bit of a relationship.
Yeah.
Where they gave him the son's clothes, had to sleep out in the barn.
Yep.
But he did bring him the son's leather jacket, and told him maybe he could take the bike around for a spin. And then we get Agent Zero killing the wife.
Yeah. That's another rhyme that happens on in the later film with Logan. At a farmhouse.
Yes.
Right.
Interesting. So yeah, definitely. And we heard Zero says that Logan killed the woman,
yes.
the old lady, and
right.
the old man.
Yeah.
Right. So was he manipulating Stryker, or was he under orders from Stryker to say that so they would send everybody in to get him?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that the rank and file folks, they didn't know what was going on. They were just following orders saying that if Logan was the one who killed those people, they have to go in there and use deadly force to take him out.
Okay, well,
that'd be my guess.
Yeah. Now, from that point, I think we get some great special effects and probably the best fight scene of the movie.
Yeah.
There.
But I will say that watching it on Blu-ray on a big screen TV, the claw special effects have not aged well. Just gonna say that. They look really bad.
Yes. Well, listen. We haven't even got to the very worst part as far as CG goes, and that doesn't come till the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But we'll get there. But yeah, I thought that scene, for the most part, it was good. The cutting of the blades, the cutting of the tires, cutting the, with the, even though they didn't look all that great, the idea of it, putting the claws into the ground to turn the bike.
Yeah. The motorcycle part the stunts were good, really good. And that, kind of reminded me of Winter Soldier.
Yes.
From that perspective. So.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if they had some of the same stunt people in this, but that fight was great. And then that took us to the next section, which I got listed as number 7. And that was, I called it Looking for Vengeance.
Okay.
So he first finds Wraith and Dukes in Las Vegas, right?
That's right. Yep.
And we see Dukes is pretty big guy.
Yeah.
Because Dukes and Victor are pretty tight. They're still pretty tight after all these years. So
yes, that's right.
When he talks to Wraith tells him that he has to get in the ring with him. So we get that whole thing, which the makeup was pretty good there.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with any of that. That was perfectly fine and serviceable, even though, we've already talked about how Dukes was not like that at all. He was part of the Brotherhood, his completely different origin for him, which is fine. But I don't even have a problem with his mutation changing over time either, because there's definitely precedent for that. I mean, Beast, back when he was originally, an X-Men, he was not blue and furry, but his mutation throughout his life changed him. And that happens all the time for mutants. So it's not unprecedented.
Right.
I don't got a problem with that.
Right. It is, happens all the time in comics. So
right.
Just like the origin stories seem to change.
Right.
And so anyways, he decides that they tell him, or Dukes tells him, that there is somebody that actually escaped the island.
Yes.
And we get to your favorite character, or your old-time favorite character, Gambit.
Yeah, which, to me, that was probably the most disappointing part in the film.
Well, yes. Well, I'm sure you remember him from the X-Men animated series.
Yeah.
And he had a nice Creole accent, and I'm sure that kind of messed you up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he also has eyes that are not like normal eyes, and so that part didn't really transfer well over here. And his powers are not like the powers in the comic. Like, Gambit's power is he's able to kinetically charge objects and they become weapons or explosives. This one looks like he was able to, manipulate cards at like telepathically, which was kind of stupid. Not telepathically,
Hey,
but
yeah,
telekinetically.
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then the staff.
Yeah,
Didn't
exactly.
he like fabricate that?
Yeah, yeah. So that also was another thing that was like, yeah. Anyway.
I thought you were going to be disappointed about
And yeah,
that.
like you said, the accent was horrible.
Yes, yes. Well, you know what? I have to say the actor for that was his first comic book movie. So, I
Yeah,
had to cut him a little slack.
I guess.
Probably his last too. I don't know if I seen him in anything else. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, the next breakdown is the island, getting to the island itself.
Yep.
And that's where we get to the realization of what Stryker is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we finally get Ryan Reynolds to shut up.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
which, yeah, I guess you kind of can see that, in a Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a different type of Deadpool origin. So,
Yeah.
not the real thing, but he was designed, according to Stryker, to eliminate mutants.
Right.
Yeah, so stretching it a little bit. But we did get some good fight scenes there. And the island
Right.
that they were talking about.
Yep.
A real island.
Yeah, 3 Mile Island. Yeah.
Yeah, so again, not like DC where they invent something.
Right.
They did come up with an actual island.
Sure.
And an actual storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we got some good fights there.
Yep.
We kind of see that Victor thought that Stryker promised him that he would get the adamantium.
Yes.
And Victor kind of was manipulating him the whole time too.
Mm-hmm.
While we find he was manipulating Logan's girlfriend.
Yep.
So
he wasn't. It was a little bit different than manipulation. That was more of a hostage. It was like a hostage thing, a blackmail thing.
Yes. I guess you could say that. That's true.
Yeah. Which to me, that was the other thing that took me out of it. The fact is that her sister, Emma.
Yes, Emma Frost.
It's not Emma Frost though. That's the thing, because we see the real Emma Frost in the 60s.
That's true.
Right. So
yes.
Yeah. This is not the same thing. So it's another Emma that happens to be able to make her skin as hard as diamonds.
Hey, well,
And then you have Cyclops as well in this film as well. So.
Yes, a young Cyclops.
Right.
Who wears sunglasses and doesn't shoot his power out his eyes.
Yeah. So.
So go figure that. But yeah, we did see how Weapon 11 had the characteristics of all of them.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes.
But no adamantium for him.
No.
Unless the saber blades, maybe?
I don't think so.
Or did he just get that part from Logan, or maybe
those were his swords?
Else?
Those were his swords.
Right, but I mean, he had them coming out of his.
Yeah, I don't know. That was stupid.
It was stupid. We know in the Deadpool movies, he's got them on his back.
Right.
And he just yields them when he needs them.
Right.
So, but we did get a pretty cool fight scene even after he thought that Victor killed his girlfriend and finds out that's not true,
Yeah.
he still tries to save him and
Mhm.
fight with him
Yep.
As an equal.
Mhm.
You know, he's my brother.
Right.
So we got that little story, but we do get also that Victor doesn't care for him as much as he cares for himself. When he sees that it's, you know, blowing up, he says, "See you later," and jumps off by
Yep.
himself, you know?
Yep.
So then we get him jumping off. We get his girlfriend who is dying. She's we're getting a blind Cyclops leading to the scariest part of the movie. And that's the CG version of Professor X.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, Patrick Stewart, not James McAvoy, right? So it's like
Right, and not even a good CG of Patrick Stewart.
I think it's good. It was good for 2009, but I mean,
it was pretty scary to me.
We've come a long way. Let's just say, and he's standing, not paralyzed. So it's like,
right. Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah, there's that thing kind of destroys the entire movie timeline.
Right, the whole perception of it. It like totally ruins it. But again, this for me was just a kind of an entertainment movie. I tried my best not to say, well, no, that didn't happen. No, that's not part of it. No, yeah. That is totally wrong, you know, but I could have looked at it that way. But like you said, watching the earlier X-Men stuff does kind of destroy what they had for their vision of this origin story.
Yep.
But we did get after that we did get the credits, and we did get a couple. You can call them teasers or you can't. I don't know what you would call them.
Yeah.
Bonus episode or bonus parts of the film.
Yeah.
Because we get Stryker walking, his shoes all worn out.
Yeah.
And
right.
They want to question him about the death of a general.
Yes.
Which he killed because they were going to shut down the project.
Yeah, Weapon X, yeah.
And then we get more credits.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get a really, really weird,
stupid
Deadpool scene where the hand comes out and takes the head that's been cut off, and it says "shh." And it's like,
that's so lame.
Okay, all right, Reynolds, how much did they pay you to do that? You know, you weren't supposed to have a mouth, so how could you do shh? You know.
Oh.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But I tried to think about how this movie came out. Did it stop them from doing any more X-Men Origins? Or did they just do Wolverine because I would venture that Wolverine is probably the second most popular to Spider-Man.
Yeah.
As far as characters, would you agree with that?
Certainly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And I would say that he's definitely the most popular mutant character. So absolutely.
Right. Well, I mean, X-Men Origins, what other origins would you like to see? If let's say if they were to have,
well, I mean, we have First Class
origins.
We've got First Class. That's enough, you know.
Well, that's for Mystique, Professor Xavier, Magneto. There's a few others there too. Minor mutants, I'm going to call them.
Yeah.
Banshee, right?
Yep.
And a few others.
Mm-hmm. So we got another origin story for a lot of those folks, so it's fine. And the thing about Wolverine, at least from my perspective, is that part of the character was that he had this mysterious past. And when you try to tell what that is, it kind of takes away from the character. The fact is that, we kind of neglected to mention this, but he at the end of this film, he loses his memory, and so that's part of his character. He's a person who doesn't really know his past, and trying to explain all of that is, I think for me, kind of takes away from the character, which is,
Right, but that particular part does lead us into the original X-Men movies. Kind of.
Sort of. Not really, but if that was the case, then you've got 21 years between the two. There's a lot that can happen in 21 years,
A lot of beer drinking, a lot of fighting in bars.
Sure.
Back up to Canada.
Right.
Because that's the closest thing to Australia for him, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. But so if you could, would you, like I said, just a standalone X-Men character, is there any other character that you'd like to see an Origins movie? Just standalone by himself, not like we had for X-Men First Class was kind of an origin for 8-10 of them, maybe. Is there like any character that would interest you? For instance, would you like to see a Gambit origin story with some good acting and a good accent?
Yeah, if done right, I think you could make that happen, because there is a really interesting story going on there in his origin story. You have the Guild of Thieves, Guild of the Assassins, and you've got some interesting, weird voodoo stuff going on.
Right, because it's in New Orleans. So.
Yeah. So that I think it could be interesting. I do like. I think Hank McCoy. We already kind of got that with First Class, though, about his stuff. I think he's one of the more interesting mutants.
Right, but not too many that you would.
Yeah. To me, so I think the big difference is that, and I think the mutants are kind of in a different class in the Marvel verse, because they didn't do anything to get their abilities, right? Normally, you have to acquire them either through by accident or by fortune, or, even in some people's cases, just from, hard work. You get your powers. Whereas mutants
Iron Man.
Well, Iron Man's he's kind of a little bit of a mix between that, because if it wasn't for that, grenade going off in his ticker, then he wouldn't have done what he did. So I was thinking more like Daredevil, because originally the story was it was because of the substance that got on his eyes and blinded him that enhanced his other senses. But the retelling in the with the Frank Miller / John Romita Jr. Man Without Fear, it was through Stick's training that he got all of his heightened senses.
Right, which was kind of the Netflix Daredevil series.
Yes.
Was a almost exact same origin.
Yeah. So for me, the origin stories for mutants, it's like, I was born with this, it manifested around puberty. Here I am. Not super exciting. I think you could make a case for like Raven, as a shapeshifter. Some of the things that you see kind of hints at, with her during the Vietnam War era, infiltrating, different things as a spy. That's pretty cool. That's probably where you could get Rogue. Well, then, that would throw off all the continuity there, because Rogue and Mystique have a connection in the comics. So.
Right. So see that, I agree So a lot of food for thought.
Sure.
If we write the screenplay for the X-Men Origins Gambit, anybody interested in directing it and sending us a couple $1 million to write the story, we'll be happy to do it.
Yeah.
when also a small percentage of whatever the box office take is, which I meant to say they only had $150 million budget on this film, you know?
Only.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it was a good sized budget, but at that time in 2009, not that big of a budget, you know? I mean, it was, but made 373 million, and not being, you said Iron Man 2 came out then, right?
Iron Man, the first one came out in
The first,
2008.
oh, that's right. Okay. So we had that, we had Hulk, and then we had this, I
Yes.
think.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. That's right.
But, and I did want to mention that Hugh Jackman,
Mm-hmm.
he holds the Guinness World Book of Records for the longest career as a live action Marvel superhero, from 2000 to 2017.
Interesting.
I bet you didn't know that. I am full of useless information. That's all I can say.
Well, I have a feeling that that's going to be surpassed pretty quickly.
Yeah?
Yeah, let's see. So that was 17 years, right?
Yeah.
And so Iron Man came out in 2008. So we're at 13 years now. And, you know, there's already there's rumors going around that Robert Downey is going to come back at some point, whether it's not for a full movie or just as a, you know.
Well, I saw a fake, I think it was a fake trailer.
Yeah.
With Robert Downey with a white beard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was
I hate
like,
those fake trailers.
Yeah, I know. And well, sometimes you'll have to admit it's hard to tell that they're fake.
No.
Unless you know that it says,
Yeah.
you know, fake or whatever, or says fan film or what have you.
Yeah.
Sometimes they fake it and say Marvel Studios trailer.
Yep.
But, you know, unless you knew for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, final thoughts?
So I do think it is interesting that we have a character, a man who has lived multiple lifetimes, and we see what destruction and brokenness comes out of it. You know, it's kind of paradoxical in a way that when we have the fall of man in Genesis 3, and the curse of God is for them to not live forever, right? But in a way, it's also a blessing, I think, because there is an end to our broken humanity. At some point, there's an end point, right?
Yes,
and
where according to God, we get a new body, and we become a new person.
For those who are in the covenant, yeah, that's right. But I'm saying, like, even people who are outside of that, they don't have to keep living like this. There's an end to this, and I think that is a mercy in some ways. So even though there's a curse, there's also mercy in that curse, and so I think that I don't think that we were made to, you know, live like Logan did. So I mean, that I think that's something that you can take from it. That
yes,
something to think about.
There are a lot of sci-fi things where somebody has longevity like that,
Mm-hmm.
and their one wish is that they could really die.
Yeah.
That they could be away from all that.
Right.
You could almost say that could be a living hell.
Right. That's my point.
Yeah.
So,
well, because I mean, no matter what, you know, statistics are 10 out of 10 people die.
Yep.
You know, the hard part is like for me to, you know that I lost my younger sister just recently to cancer.
Right.
And I am attempting to talk with my niece as I used to talk to my sister all the time. Haven't been real successful with that because I'm still feeling the hurt
Yeah.
of that. I mean, I hurt when I lost my mother, but for some reason, because she was younger than me,
Mm,
uh, I am feeling it a little deeper.
sure.
I cannot imagine what it would be like to outlive all my children and my grandchildren
Right.
and my next set of children and
Right.
all that other stuff. You know,
Right.
I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
that would be really, really, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I would be like just begging
Hmm.
by that time.
Right. Right. And so we'll actually kind of see a little bit of that come to fruition in a couple movies from now. So I think I'll have more to say about it at that point. So
Right, which I have to say, to me, the third movie in this trilogy was the best movie of this trilogy.
yeah.
Even though, and I find it weird because if I'm not mistaken, that's the only one that's rated R.
Yes.
So it's kind of weird how they were able to make that really the best one.
Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, we will. Okay. So after all that, how would you rate this? Give me a number.
I'm going to give it a 5. It's average. So I do think that if it wasn't for Hugh Jackman and Lee Schreiber's performance, I would have rated it a lot lower. But to me, there's so many things that made me groan throughout the film that it was. It's certainly not the worst Fox X-Men type film at all, but it's certainly not the best.
Okay, I would agree with that as far as it not being the best, but I have to add Danny Houston's performance in this film.
Sure.
I
Yeah,
felt that he also, uh, you did not know how much of a villain he was until the very end,
that's fair.
you know? So he played that part well.
Yep.
So I'm going to do better than you, and I'm going to give it a 6.5.
Okay.
I would have almost given it a 7 if I didn't have to live through that CG version of Professor X that was at the end. That was scary.
Yeah.
That was so bad that I had I almost cringed when I saw it, especially at the very end part when they gave him the smile. I was like, oh no. He never smiled like that when he was Picard.
No, no. But I am face palming like he does if Picard does. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
All right. Cool.
All right, so good.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up there. We'll like I said, please like us on Facebook. You can watch this on Facebook. You can watch this on our YouTube channel. You can catch us on Twitter and give us a review wherever, or leave us a comment. We'll be happy to interact with you that way. And we'll see you next week with the Wolverine. Goodbye and God bless.
Goodbye, God bless, and tell your friends.